Welcome to In the News for September the 20th, 2024. I am Brett Burney from appsandlaw.com.
And this is Jeff Richardson from iPhone JD. Hi, Brett.
Hi, Jeff. It is a big day. I'm just reading through your post today, Jeff, and there's so much that has been released that is coming out that you might be getting. I mean, what an exciting day, for crying out loud. This is amazing.
It is an exciting day. You know, in fact, just a few minutes ago, I was noticing on, I noticed it on Mastodon, but it was actually posted on Threads that Chance Miller from 9 to 5 Mac had a live little video from right outside that, you know, on Fifth Avenue in New York, they have the big iconic cube Apple store.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
So,
here, you linked to it. Oh, that's awesome.
I linked to something different. I linked to the fact that it's sort of lit up, you know, all the colors on the edge of it, just like behind your head right now for the new Siri. But what they were referring to, so that's sort of fun that it's got all the Siri's colors on it. But what was funny this morning is that, you know how just before an Apple store opens up on the day that they have a product come out, you know, there's always a big line of people, especially for a flagship store like Fifth Avenue.
Right.
And so they had the Apple people that were in the front of the store, and they had the crowd, and the employees are excited, and they're jumping around, and they're sort of yelling things to get excited. Yeah. But what I was laughing at is they had a little thing where one of the Apple guys is saying, "When I say A, you say I," and then the Apple people go A, and the crowd goes I. So they're doing AI back and forth. And I just thought to myself that, you know, one day in the future, when the robots become sentient and take over, they will look back on this moment of, look at the fun humans cheering for AI. Yes, exactly. So, but as a side note, and of course, since this podcast is being recorded, I will say for the record that we love our robot overlords. We're very happy with them. But anyway, just make sure that's on the record.
Yes, thank you.
But it's also funny because Apple is also excited about AI. But of course, what we all talked about is, you know, the new iPhones are ready for AI, but the AI is actually not going to be there, at least the one that they're really all excited about, for a couple of weeks. Again, that's not a big deal because we'll have a couple of weeks to get used to the other fun new aspects of new iPhones. But anyway, when we have recorded this podcast in the past on Fridays that new devices have come out, sometimes, Brett, we have been lucky enough that I've actually gotten the product while we're recording. So I have no idea. We're going to keep fingers crossed, and there's always the possibility that before we're done here, we'll have we shall see. So we'll find out when it's in, whether or not we have that or not. So with that in mind.
So you've got a phone coming, right? No, wait. The phone is coming.
I'm
shipping
the phone and the watch, exactly.
And the watch,
I did not get the new AirPods because I use the AirPods Pro, but I did get the Apple Watch 10, which I'm really looking forward to, and I did get the iPhone 16 Pro Max. So
you went Max again. That's right. I remember you talking about that. Oh, that's so exciting. What a day. Okay, so it's not just the hardware that's coming out. We might come back to the hardware just in a little bit here. But oh my goodness, it's almost like everything got an update, even though, just like what you said, we don't have the Apple Intelligence update yet. But it's like they released everything else with the update. And it's just like I'm trying to get my head wrapped around it. I guess we can start with iOS 18, right, Jeff? Because, I mean, that's the big thing that most people are going to start talking about.
So iOS 18 came out on Monday, and so by now you probably have seen a notice on your iPhone about it coming out. Again, you know, wait until you're in a good position. I know you were saying, Brett, that because you've been traveling all week long and you're in Chicago today, you haven't updated yet. But whenever you find yourself, when you get yourself into a settled situation, you can do so.
Yes.
But iOS 18's got some interesting features to it. The one that's most notable is the one that doesn't really appeal to me, but let me just notice it because, I mean, it's something that you're going to see. Is that it has all these changes to the home screen. So like you can now have if you want to have a space that you only have some icons at the top and only some at the bottom and just have open space, you can do that. I mean, I personally want to use that space and put icons there. So this is not for me.
I know.
But, you know, it's interesting. And likewise, you can now apply like color schemes to like make all of your apps, not just in night mode, although you can do that too, but you can also say like, I want to have, you know, a purple theme to all of my apps or a green theme and maybe make that complement my wallpaper background. For me, I just want the colors that the app developers give me.
I know,
But I will admit that I have seen some interesting mock-ups of what people have done, and I'm like, you know, you do you, whatever. If this is a sort of, you know, color scheme that makes you happy, so I it's something that you're going to definitely notice as you look over somebody's shoulder and you see their iPhone. Some of those iPhones are going to look really, really different. Yeah, that second picture on this post from Juli Clover really shows it, that you can have, you know, all these different tints and themes and everything else. It's so that's something that I think people are going to notice. Again, not something I'm going to probably do. Go ahead.
And that's it. I mean, I feel like that's just going to be the thing that most people are going to recognize just right off the bat. I mean, for so many years, like we've all kind of looked the same, at least on our iPhone home screen. And this is such a big deal. Like, I don't even know where to start, Jeff. I mean, I haven't upgraded yet, like you said, which is just crazy. I'm hoping to do that today. But even my wife and my son have already upgraded, and they're sending me pictures of like how they've organized their home screen. And I'm like, how do you find the time to do that? But I mean, it is nice that I feel like finally, after all these years, that people can actually move things around and put them actually where they want to put them. You know, we've had widgets and other things we've been able to customize, and over the years we've seen hacks of how people kind of organize their things. But now it's like you're not going to know where things are when you pick up somebody else's iPhone. Not that you need to necessarily, but anyway, that's going to be, I think, one of the biggest things that people are going to recognize right off the bat.
In fact, one little tweak on that I thought about but decided not to do is if you want to have, for years and years, we've always had these app icons that had the icon and right underneath it, it has the name, typically in white. But if you decide, you know what, I know what those icons are. I recognize them. When I see the photos icon, I don't need you to actually type the word photos underneath it. You have a mode that you can enable where it makes all of your icons bigger and takes away the name underneath it. So it's just something that if you decide that it's something that you're interested in, we're all sort of familiar with it because on your current iPhone home screen, you know how you can put those four apps at the bottom, and those four
at the
apps
bottom on the dock.
They don't in the dock. They don't tell you the name. I mean, the idea is if you know those four icons.
Oh, that's
and so
right.
The idea of having an icon without a name is something we've had before, but now you can have all your icons have no names, and as a result, because of that extra space, have them be just a little bit bigger. So that's something that I actually did play around in. I turned it on earlier this week, and for my main two home screens, it was great. The reason that I turned it back off is like once I got past that and stuff, there are some icons that like I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but some apps
not completely sure.
They're just such generic things that I wasn't 100% sure what this was. So anyway, but it's something to play with.
Right.
So, but when you talked about the idea of you just said you're going to take the time this weekend. This is the next thing I wanted to discuss is the new Control Center. Control Center in iOS 18. Now, again, this is totally a geeky thing, but on the modern iPhones, you swipe down from the top right and you get to the Control Center. You can now customize so much. I mean, right off the bat, Control Center is now broken into 3 different sections, and you can sort of swipe between them to go through them. But then within each of those sections, you can move things around. You can add Control Center icons that have never been there before. You can make some of them bigger, some of them smaller. There's a ton you can do, and I haven't even started yet because I've been way too busy at work this week. This is the sort of thing, Brett, that I just want to, at some point over the weekend or whenever I have downtime, I just want to start to play around. And I have no doubt it's going to take me weeks until I get it configured in a way that I like. But I love the idea that I have that power and that I'm going to get to the point where I have power over the Control Center. It's got just the things that I want. Some things are going to be bigger because it's more important to me. Some things I'll have the smaller version of it. You cannot get more fiddly and more nerdy than changing around Control Center icons and stuff. But I really look forward to doing it. So I haven't done it yet for myself. It's going to be like a weekend project.
That's a weekend project.
But I love the idea that we'll be able to do that. So those are some of the big ones. There's things like the Safari app and Math Notes we've talked about before on the iPad, which I played around with. That's it's interesting. That you can use your pen and you can write equations out. And I was doing something where I would say widget equals 4. Like I've got 4 widgets, and then I would put like I don't know. Number equals 16, and then I would say widget times number equals, and it would do the math for me, and then I would go back and change the number of widgets, and it would of course change the number. You could do these sort of sophisticated, not that that's sophisticated, I'm doing simple addition and multiplication, but you can do some cool stuff. And of course, if you know math, I mean, if you know how to do the sophisticated functions and all those math things that I remembered learning in high school and have forgotten most of them, I think it's cool that you have that ability to sort of write out math problems. So it's a neat technology. It shows like a bunch of different things at once because it's a little degree of like machine learning type stuff to even understand what you're writing. It's understanding your handwriting. It's giving your answer in a handwriting that looks sort of similar to your own handwriting. It's neat stuff. And for the types of simple addition and multiplication and stuff like that I do, I think that sometimes it might be more helpful because I don't know if you've done this before, Brett, but sometimes when I'm typing in a calculator, it'll be like this times this, and then this times this, and then you sort of get lost in the numbers of like, what was I doing? Okay,
Right. Yes.
can I see
Right.
that old equation? And you just sort of lose your place. Whereas if you can actually write it out, and you can do this on the iPhone too, by the way. I mentioned it on the iPad because you just have more screen real estate, but you can use your
Right.
finger.
Exactly.
But to just sort of like have it all there, it's much like if you're going to go really pro and have a spreadsheet, well, then you have it all in front of you. But the spreadsheets, in some ways,
Right.
that's the other extreme because for a spreadsheet to actually see what's going on in a cell, you need to click on the cell and then look at the bar at the top and see what the
Right.
equation is. This
Right.
is sort of that happy medium of it's simple that I can see it all in front of me, and yet I have some space. So this is one of these things that I actually think is going to be really useful. And I'm looking more toward to it. So
I,
that's just
I
sort of
just
some of
remember,
the highlights.
I haven't updated yet, but I just remember on the math notes, and this is where I need, because I am not the math the math genius on this either. But just the fact that you could write that out, and to underscore what you said, Jeff, is the fact that you could change some of those parameters in
Yeah.
real time, and it changes everything. I mean, that is just so mind blowing, and the fact that you have that capacity. And I think we're really going to see some. I'm sure there's already some YouTube videos and stuff out there, but you kind of have to see that, I think, in action and how it could do, like, to even get an idea. I'm not a math nerd, so I don't really, kind of fully comprehend all of that. But I just know of hearing some folks that are much smarter on that spectrum. It's just revolutionary. I mean, even from school, like, why could we have this when we were in grade school, Jeff? Like, this is so
I know.
cool.
Yeah.
When I was in calculus class, I mean, this would have just been amazing. But anyway, I'm glad it's here now. That's cool too.
So you want to move on to like another one of the big things about the new iOS, and one of the things that had me perhaps the most scared in the beginning was the Photos apps changes.
Yes.
When Apple changed the Photos app in iOS 18, and when the initial beta came out, which was right after WWDC in June of this year, I heard people saying, "Whoa, this may be a bridge too far, Apple," and I got really concerned about it. I
Right.
will tell you, I've been playing around with it myself just on my Vision OS, but my Apple Vision Pro, because that's what I updated. And then all this week, I've been playing with it on my iPhone and my iPad. I'm here to say I am all in favor of these changes. I think that
Really?
Apple did a
Okay.
fantastic
You like
job.
it.
Really, really great. Because first of all, the traditional part of Photos, which is that when you open the app, you just see like all your pictures. That's still there. It's still the top half of your screen, you know?
Okay.
So all you need
Okay.
to do is scroll up and you haven't lost anything. But just below it at the bottom of the screen for your iPhone, and then on even more of the screen if you have an iPad that's even bigger, what Apple has done is that they've come up with this way to sort of bring things to your attention so that photos that you've forgotten about just come to the forefront. And we're all familiar with this because, we've been talking for years about having like a widget on your phone or your iPad that brings up random photos. Or if you went through the trouble in the Photos app of actually clicking on the Memories tab and the For You and stuff of having some special things, it's just that it now is just more to the forefront than ever before. And especially, if you're a person that only has 100 photos on your iPhone, well, then I guess this doesn't apply to you. But if you have pictures over, years, decades. I mean, I've got pictures that go
Yeah.
to frankly even before I was born, just because I've
Exactly.
coded them before I was born. Some old picture that I
Right.
copied from the wall of my grandparents or something like that of them when they were kids. So I've got pictures that go back forever. And when I've got 60,000 pictures, I'm never going to sit there and say, let me page through your one by one 60,000 pictures. So what you want to do is just have fun
Right.
pictures just come up. And Apple does a good job of just, I mean, they're not going to pick the bad ones. They don't pick the blurry pictures. They pick a picture that they think is good and it comes up. So that's a nice thing just in some discovery. But Apple has sort of tweaked that in a number of different ways. So for example, one of the things that by default, it's right there up front when you go into Photos is they have something called recent days. Now, how
Yep. I see that.
oftentimes,
Right.
I just talked about how fun it is to see a picture from decades ago, but oftentimes when I go into Photos, I just want to see a picture I took recently. I'm like, I know
Right.
recently I took a picture of such and such and I want to talk to somebody about it. And the nice thing about recent days is they sort of like every day that you have a significant number of photos, and if you don't, they don't have anything for that day. They will put together
Okay.
sort of what they think is the best of them. It's not every single photo, but it's the
Oh.
ones that are, for whatever reason, most likely to be the ones that sort of stand out. And so far, it does a good job of doing that. And what I've found is if I'm looking for a recent photo, the old way I would do it is I would just scroll through your big, photo with all the, with all the squares, and you would just look and see. And sometimes you get lost. It's like, wait a minute, am I a week ago or am I 4 days? You sort of, you might have
Right.
trouble. You might need to make it bigger. This one, however, because it comes up with sort of a cover photo, as it were, for each day, and if you're watching the video right now, you can sort of see that on the screen, that I can just very easily say, okay, here's some pictures from yesterday, here's some pictures from 3 days ago, here's some pictures from last Sunday, next one's pictures from last Saturday. So I can very easily go, okay, yeah, I was talking about the pictures of the park. So I can very easily see, okay, this square, I can tell from the cover, these are those park pictures from last Saturday, tap on that, and then you can see the key pictures. And I actually find it's a faster way to bring up that recent picture than just scrolling through the recent picture. Which totally surprised me. So like, I didn't understand what Apple was getting at, because when I first saw this feature, I'm like, why do you need to have recent days? Because you just scroll backwards for that.
It's right there. Right. Exactly.
This is doing a good job. And so that's just an example of it. And then a corollary to that, there's another one that they have in it called Trips. And it's the same thing. I would often, if I take a beach trip or if we go to Disney World or whatever, I will often create a folder. I'll take those, 100 pictures and I'll move them into a folder and I'll call that trip to New York or whatever it is. And so I could find it that way. But the iPhone, whether I have made folders or not made folders, now the iPhone and the iPad and the Mac and everything else that has the Photos app is automatically organize them. I mean, they can tell because of where the photo was taken that, this was a trip to Portland, Oregon, or this was a trip to San Francisco, whatever. And then of course from the dates as well, they can put them together. And I find that if you're just trying to say, gosh, earlier this year, we went to Nashville to go see our friend. If you just tap on that trips thing, you don't take that many trips. So it's very quick to find, here's that trip to Nashville from earlier this year, or here's this trip to, Tampa, Florida 3 years ago. And so it's a fast way to sort of just get you there. And then once you're there, you can look at photos. And then the last thing I'll say, because I could talk about this forever on the app, is that for any of these collections, whether you are on a previous, a recent day collection, or whether you are on a trip collection, or whether you are on something per person, however you've gotten there, they have integrated the feature that we first all got to know in Memories, which is that it has it can create a little movie of the pictures, which is really nice. Put it to music. That. But even better than that, if you're just like, once you click on, that trip to Tampa, Florida, whatever, you're going to see the pictures of the bottom half, but the top half of the screen is going to basically sort of transition, sort of like a Ken Burns effect, between photos. And any photo that has live video, which is most of my photos recently, it will have like little video snippets. And it's almost like this, it's sort of like a little Memories, without the music, because it's just showing it up there. It's really nice. It's like, it brings your pictures to life. It's just, it's really nice. So I cannot stop gushing enough about the Photos feature.
I can tell.
They have really hit it out of the park. Let me mention two more things on it that are a little outside of the iPhone and the iPad, because I can't say enough. Apple has gotten so good at the photos, right, that they can analyze the photos and they can analyze the depth perception. So, for example, if you took a photo of me on the screen right now, it can see my face here, and then it knows that the wall and this art on the wall behind me is sort of behind me. And so it can understand that those are two different layers or fields,
like planes or something.
Like
planes,
I gotcha. Exactly.
Yeah.
So the photos, if you have an Apple Watch, the Photos watch face has gotten really good in Watch 11. And if you choose the Photos watch face, the way it does is and they've had versions of this in the past, because they used to have a watch face that was called Portraits. But now what it'll do is, if you use the Photos watch face, every day it will pick, I don't know the number, it's like 12, 16, 20, something like that. It's more than 10, probably less than 20. So it will take a number of pictures every day, and it picks pictures that it thinks are particularly appropriate for a watch face. You can decide in the on your iPhone in the Watch app, do I want to have pictures of people? Do I want to have pictures of landscapes? Do I want pets? It's very similar to the choices that you can make for your home screen backgrounds. And so you can choose one or more of those. For me, I just have it pictures, and for photos of people, and for me, it's just the people that I've got sort of favorited in my Photos app. So it's my wife and it's my two kids. So it's a small, and against me, the four of us. And so it's a small selection of pictures, and then it will randomly pick some pictures that it thinks are going to look good on the watch face. And because it can sort of separate the layers, the planes, like you were saying, it will have it that the time is behind me, so my head sort of covers up some of it, and they will actually put the placement of the clock on your watch will move depending on the picture. So for some pictures, it may make sense
Oh.
to be on the left. For other
Ooh,
pictures,
I
on the
like
right, or the
that.
top, or the bottom. So it's very dynamic. It creates something that, like, if I was going to make this myself, it would have taken me a lot of time, but it just happens really quick automatically. So that's a fun way to see your pictures on your watch. I mean, I'm looking down right now and I'm seeing a cool picture of, my wife here with sort of the time on the top. And then, you can tap it and change it. It's really cool. Another one is for the few people that have the Apple Vision Pro, and I realize not many people do, but the Photos app on the Vision Pro, it has sort of a favorites feature. What it will do is it will come up with photos that are made for spatial video. And, I'm sorry, let me rephrase this better. It will take a regular photo that was just taken as a regular photo, even if it's an old
Right.
photo, and it will add this 3D spatial effect to it. And I've talked about this before, that it can sort of fake it so that when you're looking at it in a Vision Pro, it looks like it's a 3D picture. And about 9 times out of 10, it's amazing. It looks real. And about 1 time out of 10, it gets a little off. Sort of like, you remember in the very early days when Apple would sort of like come up with the fake effects where it would sort of blur the background for a bokeh effect. Sometimes with hair, it would sort of mess up at the ends and stuff like that. And then Apple's gotten much better over time. So it's the same thing that sometimes it's a little odd, but most of the time it's cool. And so with my Vision Pro, just like with my iPhone and my iPad, it's finding an old picture that I haven't seen in a long time and it's showing to me again. That's really cool. But it's also in 3D, and it's a picture that was picked because Apple thought it would look particularly good in 3D. And I know it's a gimmick. I know it is, but I look at it and it gives this emotional feeling for a picture that it's tough to put into words. And it's sort of like you're there again. It's bringing it to life. It's gosh, it's really cool, especially, if it brings up someone who's, gosh forbid, passed away or something like that. You're like, there's my grandmother again. And it's like she's with me because I can see her in 3D. It's really, really, really cool. So again, that's, a long way of saying Apple has really done a great job with photos across all the different platforms. And it is one of my real favorite things about iOS 8.
I am so encouraged to hear you gushing about this because a couple of things. I saw all that Apple had announced and was talking about the changes. And number one, it doesn't apply to me because it's like, okay, those are fake photos. It's like when I see other people doing it, it's like, but I want to see it on my photos. Like I want to see how this goes. And number two, we've talked about this many times. It's the Photos app. Like these are things that are very special to each individual. And it's like I have muscle memory going into my photo roll. I know where the albums are that I created or the shared albums. Although I will tell you, there's just a lot of like junk that has been over the years, like different albums that I probably don't even need and why. And so when I saw these changes, I was like, this could be something I'm not very excited about. Like Apple has got to do it right, and it sounds like that they've done a good job. Jeff, just hearing you talk about this, like I'm really thrilled, and a couple of other people I've listened to on podcasts as well that some people have been very hesitant about this or very skeptical, and that's maybe the better way to say it. But even Jason Snell, like this article you linked to that we've been looking at and hearing you talk about it, I'm really glad that it sounds like Apple has done a good job. And man, I'm excited to upgrade. Now I gotta look at all of this. It's that's really good. I'm glad that you took the time to go through that. I mean, goodness, we haven't even talked about like the messages updates. I think I mentioned my wife has already updated her phone, and I have not. And so she was sending me text messages like, "Hey, look how cool this is with the new tap backs," and like I could do bold in my text messages. Like I can't see it yet. I haven't updated. I'm glad that you're happy, but let me update first and then I can see it. And I haven't done that. But I mean, just the messages alone, that's the other thing. I think, with the photos, very personal, the text messages, obviously very, very personal, but it sounds like from everything I've heard as well, people are loving the new messages options in here. Have you been able to use some of that already too, Jeff?
Yeah, and I'll admit the only reason I haven't mentioned it yet is we were going to talk for our tips of the day today. I was going to save something special. That's what I was going to say for special. But we can talk about it now if you want. It's really good. Apple did some great things to the Messages app. I really like I quickly got used to the tap back feature, which came out a year or two ago.
Yeah,
you can,
same.
Because sometimes somebody tells you something and like you don't want to ignore them. you want to say something, but it really doesn't require more than like a thumbs up. And the idea that you could thumbs up on top of the specific text was so nice. And so I would say probably 2 or 3 weeks after starting to use the tapbacks function, I immediately thought, this is great, and it's too limited because all I have is what the 6 options, right? Was it the heart,
6 options,
the thumbs up, you know, the ha, whatever they were.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes that you just need to say more than that, but you don't need to say much more than that. And so it made so much sense for Apple to update this to add the emojis tap back. And I have been using it this week, and it is, you know, whether, you know, whatever it is, you know, whether it's just as an alternative to the thumbs up, you can use a check mark, for example. Let's put a check mark on something, or you can do different types of hearts things on things. It's just, you know, we all know the emoji that we know and love. And I'm not even a crazy emoji person. Goodness knows my teenagers basically communicate in emoji like it's a different language. But for me, it's sometimes, you know, just that perfect emoji, the perfect type of happy face or confused face. It's just a great thing. So emoji tap back, really cool. You know, another one that's really useful, that's part of the Messages app, if we're going to talk about this one. You can now, and Apple's had this for the Mail app too, you can delay the delivery of a message. And I will tell you, Brett, I have actually, in fact, I'll make it personal. This week, I sent you a message earlier this week, and I was going to send it to you at night. And, you know, I'm an hour behind you. So for me, it was like, it was midnight my time. It's 1 o'clock your time. I'm like, and I'm sure you probably had do not disturb turned on. It's like, the last thing I want to do, I just was trying to share something with you. And I don't want to send this to Brett at 1 o'clock in the morning and have him wake up in bed and say, oh my goodness, is my house on fire? No, it's Jeff just saying, here's something
what does Jeff
cool.
need?
And so what you can do now is when
I
you
would
type
welcome that, by the way. So
well, fair enough. Okay, good to know. But when you type something in the Messages app, if you hit, you know, that plus sign that's to the left, the same one that you would hit to like do photos and other sorts of little things. When you hit that plus sign, you now have an option of I think it's called like delayed delivery. I don't have it in front of me right now, but then you can pick the time of, you know, I want this to actually, don't deliver it now, deliver it at, you know, 8 a.m. tomorrow when I know that Brett's going to be awake or whatever it is. And then he can deal with it then. And so it's something that there have literally been times in the past, because I'm a night owl, I suspect, that I have not wanted to send. I was going to send somebody something at night, and I'm like, well, I don't want to be that guy that's sending something, you know, at midnight. But I'm totally fine with sending it first thing in the morning or whatever. And so it's a silly little thing, but it's a feature that I was going to use. And in fact, I almost used it with you this week, but I did not, but I probably will in the future. So
that's okay.
There's other ones too. I mean, you can now have, and, you know, different effects on words and stuff like that. And I haven't even played around with that stuff to have them, you know, sending them, they'll be wavy or bold or
ripple
or
jitter,
you know, these fun little things. I haven't even gotten there yet, but I'm sure that there will be an appropriate time when I want to send my brother a text and I'm going to say, you know, this really needs to have, you know, the shake effect on it or the jitter effect or the whatever else.
Or the explode or bloom.
Absolutely explode. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I know we were talking about that, but you were going to talk about that later, but it's such a big deal. I mean, and in fact, I think on some of these tapbacks or maybe the emoji, somewhere in here, Jeff, obviously I haven't upgraded yet, but you can customize some of your tapbacks, right? Or you can add some of those on there as well, or maybe some of the...
Well, any emoji is what it is. So I mean, any emoji character can become a tapback. So which is pretty...
That's amazing.
Are there hundreds and hundreds of emojis? So,
yeah, I know. It's like it's limitless at that point. Okay, I know we got to move on, but I mean, they're so good. You have several links for this is Dan Moren. I mean, he did such a great job in here. This is another great article from Juli Clover that you linked to. 10 things to do first when you upgrade iOS 18. What a great article. I mean, I love this because such a big update here, right? As everybody understands. Like, I'm glad that you linked to this because, like, yeah, that's the first things I want to do. She goes, set up the home screen like we talked about already, set up Control Center, which is what you're going to do this weekend. I mean, just even the lock screen, you can customize a little bit more. Organize your photos. This is a great article. I'll make sure it's in the show notes so everybody can look. Like, when you do upgrade to iOS 18, here are some of the first things to make sure that you jump on and get going on that. Whew, okay, there's so much more. I mean, there's so much just packed into that. We barely even mentioned the iPad, but why don't we move on to the watch? Can we talk about the watch? Because you're getting a watch, the watch, Apple Watch 10 today, but even if you don't have the brand new watch, you can still upgrade to watchOS 11, which again, just amazing updates that are happening in the watch side here as well.
I'm so glad that this stuff is live now. We've been talking about it for a while, knowing that it was coming. You know, things like with activity rings, if you're the sort of person that wants to try to get your stand points or your exercise points every single day, But if you
Right.
want to give yourself a break, you can now do that, which is a cool feature.
Oh, so
You can
good.
have
Yeah.
there's the new Vitals app that I have just started. I haven't even looked at my Vitals things yet, but you need to be, you wearing your Apple Watch at night, which I've been doing all this week just to sort of collect the data, but I haven't started to look
Good.
at it yet. But so that's something that's new. By the way, sort of related to that, if you either have the new Apple Watch 10 or if you have the Apple Watch 9 that came out last year or the Ultra
Right.
2, I think those are the three different models. You can now do the sleep apnea thing that we've talked about. We
Yeah,
talked
I
about it last
saw that.
episode. So that's cool. And again, I think it needs 30 days of data before it starts to collect things. So I mean, those of us who started, this week in mid-September, I guess starting in mid-October, mid to late October, we'll start to get some alerts if we have it. So it's got some health stuff, and that's always sort of nice.
Yeah, real quick on
Mhm.
that. You linked to another story. That it was the two things that I remember at Apple, 2 weeks ago when they had the big announcement. They mentioned that they were waiting on FDA approval, number one, for those AirPods, the AirPods Pro hearing aid capabilities,
Right.
and it was like the day after. Like I remember we talked about this. I remember that Apple said we're waiting on FDA approval, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going to be months and months and months. And it was like the next day or the next couple of days they got that approval. And you just linked to a story, like apparently just a couple of days ago, FDA approval now for this sleep apnea component here, this detection on the Apple Watch. That is mind blowing to me, Jeff, that they got this approval. I mean, obviously it was in the works for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And Apple wouldn't have maybe mentioned it, but just the fact that there now has the approval, both the hearing aid component on there, as well as now even the sleep apnea detection on the Apple Watch, so that when people get it today, when you get it today, it's going to be ready to go. Like it's not just going to be a sleeper mode of some kind,
Yeah.
pun
And
intended. But it's like it's going to be ready to go, and that's amazing.
you just said it, Brett, that when they announced this on that event, I thought to myself, there's no way Apple says this out loud unless they are darn sure
Yeah,
that they are
you said
just
that. I remember.
days
Yeah,
away from getting FDA approval. And sure enough, they were. So I don't know how that process works. I've as an attorney, I've never dealt with the FDA and anything, so I don't know how the pre-approval process works or anything else. But Apple was clearly very sure that they were going to get this stuff approved in just days, and sure enough, they did. But it was
yeah,
nice to get those
yeah.
announcements, and so that those features can come up. So lots of health stuff. Another thing on the watchOS that's new and that I haven't really started to get into yet, and it's another one of these things I really look forward to playing with is, widgets. So let me back up even further. There was a
Okay.
time in the past where one of the Apple Watch faces was the Siri watch face. And the idea is
Yes.
that it would
Yes.
try to bring up information that it thought was relevant to you at different times. Apple no longer has the Siri watch face as of Watch 11. It's one of 4 or 5 watch faces they've discontinued. And the reason they don't have it is because it's sort of built into every watch face. Because
Oh,
with
okay.
every watch face, if you take your finger and just sort of push up from the bottom, you get to that widget mode. And this is something that we started to see last year. But unlike last year, where widgets were more static, this year widgets become more interactive. And I haven't, I've just started to play around with this. I mean, I've noticed, for
Right.
example,
Right.
that like the now, I think this is new, that the now playing widget, if I'm listening to a podcast or a song or something, that the widget itself is now interactive and it has on the widget a little play pause button. So,
Oh.
for example, it
Okay.
used to be that I would have to switch over to the now playing watch app to control
Right.
things. But now I
Exactly.
don't need to because it's just right there.
Ooh.
And
Okay.
that's
I
actually
like
pretty
that.
cool because I've used that where I'm listening to something. Yeah, I mean, you're showing a picture of it right now on the right side that,
Right.
just as I'm listening to something, it's already got the pause button right there. I
Oh,
can just
that's
tap it
awesome.
and it
Yeah.
pauses what I'm listening to, and I could talk to somebody for a second and then tap it again and come back. And so I think this is an example. And again, I know there's going to be many more that I haven't gotten deep into yet, but the idea of with more interactive widgets, I really think slash hope that the widgets feature that we can all get to just by sliding up is going to all become a lot more useful. So a combination of the widgets themselves becoming more useful, Apple
Yeah.
being more intelligent about showing you widgets that it thinks are going to be appropriate based upon what you're doing at that time. This is one of those things that like I haven't got a chance to get deep into it yet, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to do that because it's exactly what you said. Like there is like a now playing like I guess, an app, but
Sure.
also there's a Spotify app and there's a music app on my watch. And if it's playing, I might be running, so I have like the workout app that's on my watch, if that makes sense, right? But it's like if it's music playing through my watch, I have to like go and like double click, the side to get access to the open apps. And it's just I hate having to like double click, and sometimes I don't remember. Anyway, this is just great that the interactivity, and I assume it's going to be more for than just the music app and other things going on. But anyway, that's just really cool. And did I see somewhere else, maybe in one of these others that you linked to, that you can now use the Apple Watch as a remote? Like, in other words, like we use for the Apple TV, if I'm not mistaken, because I will use my iPhone or my iPad sometimes if I want to type something in for a search or something like that. But now you can even do that on the watch. I don't think that was there before, but that's pretty cool.
It was, but it's now new. So what it was is it used to be that there was an app on the watch called, I think it was called Remote, and it could do things like play, pause, and it could do like the simple stuff. But now it's even more sophisticated, because I think it can now do like, you can control the volume on your TV by using the digital crown. It's an even more full controlled thing, so that if you don't have the Apple remote with you, because it's so tiny and small, it fell between the couch cushions, you can't find it. You can, of course, you can use your iPhone, which is very useful, and you can make it even more useful by putting that little icon in your control center right at the top, since you can move all the stuff around. Get it back to where we were before. Or if you have your Apple Watch on, you could use your Apple Watch 2 to do it. So it's got just even more power. Again, we're assuming that you were controlling an Apple TV, of course. I don't think it's going to do anything for your
agreed,
your Roku or anything like that. But yes, for your Apple TV, the watch can be an even more useful remote.
You linked today to, and I'll put this in the show notes, of MacStories. This is from Jonathan Reed on MacStories. I mean, this is like a novel. A short novel review of everything in watchOS 11, which is really great. Some of the things I've been clicking through here is you talking about the vitals and the widgets aspects on here. Anything else you want to highlight on some of the Apple Watch aspects?
Not on that, but I actually want to step back and just highlight what you're sort of showing. MacStories, the website, and I linked to it today. The website has done a great job this week.
Yes,
they have. If you want like the super in-depth, all the nitty-gritty details, this is the place to go. Federico Viticci, for like a decade now, has been doing their iOS reviews, and he did one this year. It's like 10 pages long. It's like 10 web pages, so it's very, very long. It's incredibly detailed. So his iOS review is fantastic. They had somebody do a watchOS review. They had somebody do a visionOS review. I see that. They have the new Mac. What is it? Sequoia? What's the new Mac OS called this year?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So
Sequoia. You're right.
Yeah. If you're John Voorhees, did that, former attorney. If you want really good in-depth reviews, MacStories has got you covered. And then there's lots of other ones too that are also good, and I linked to many of those as well. But like some of these reviews, I've read them all the way through. Others, I was going to wait till this weekend when I have some downtime just to sort of sit on the couch and like really go through it. Because if you go through a really detailed review like these, you can then use this with your watch and stuff like that, or with your phone. So if you feel like going deep in these changes, I recommend
this is the place to go.
MacStories did a great job this week.
You barely mentioned your Vision, but even that got an update. This is visionOS 2 for the Apple Vision Pro. Any quick highlights that you want to jump in? I mean, it's just so nice to hear you talk about looking at some of these photos, and even from the emotional aspect. And those of us that are not on the Vision yet, are kind of like, oh, that sounds really nice. But I can tell when you talk about it, Jeff, it's like it's really a little visceral. Like when you see this, and I can't wait. Like one day I'm going to make sure that I could do that. But any other big updates about the Vision OS for this week?
My one big statement on visionOS 2 is that it's sort of fun to go back in time, as it were, and be at the early stages of something again. We all remember the early stages of the iPhone when they finally added, the App Store, and they finally added cut and paste. It's like, how could that not have been the beginning? And likewise with the iPad and the Apple Watch and everything else, we have all seen, and if you go back even further, the Mac itself, we've all seen these transitions in our lifetime where it's been a major new product, and it's sort of fun to see it get its birth. And that's where we are with the visionOS. You know, visionOS 2, everything is so new. It's such a new platform and everything else that they're adding so many new things. And a good example of them is, you know, in the first version of visionOS, if you wanted to get to something that's sort of akin to the control center that we were talking about on the iPhone, the way that you would do it is you would look at the top of the screen. There's no screen. You just look at the top, look up basically. And you look up and, you know, floating above your living room, you would see like this tiny, tiny, tiny little dot. And if you looked at the dot, you could sort of stare at it and it would open up and it would bring up control panel. It was a nice idea, you know, people coming out with the interface. It was a good first shot, but then after people have been using it for a while, you know, they said, you know, maybe that's not the best way to do it. And so in the current version of visionOS, they now have this thing that if you just hold your hand out like this, with your palm facing up, suddenly this little dot floats right over your hand, and you can tap and it will open up your home screen of your apps. And that's nice because it means that you don't have to reach up and touch the button. But what's even better than that is if you take your hand facing up and then you flip it over as if like you had your watch hand, you would flip it over. That gesture of flipping your hand brings up the control panel and it lets you adjust all sorts of fiddly little details and adjust volume and other stuff like that, or even just see the time. Sometimes I'll be sitting there in my visionOS world and I just want to see the time real quick, and I'll just put my hand out and put it over, and then I could see the time. And you know, I guess nobody thought about that gesture when they were first coming out with the Apple Vision Pro. This is all a brand new world, right? But you know, these things that, you know, I'm sure at one point in the future, like, oh well, of course you just flip your hand over, such stuff. You know, of course you have copy and paste on the iPhone. You know, of course we're still at those early stages. So I sort of find that fun. Everything about the Vision Pro is totally beta, totally new world stuff, and it's fun to see Apple figuring things out over time. There's lots of other little improvements too. Of, you know, you can now, it's easier to see a keyboard while you're doing it. We talked about the photos improvement. There's new environments that you can be in. This beautiful one called Bora Bora, where you're on the most beautiful beach in the world.
Oh my goodness.
Perfectly blue water that's shimmering and you're on the sand. And I mean, it's the sort of thing that like I sometimes will create that environment and try to sit down and get some work done. And like, just as if I'm at the beach, it's like, why am I doing work? I should just be sitting here looking at the beach. It's really nice. So they've done a nice job with 2.0. I've heard the one complaint that I've heard is some people have said this should not have been 2.0. It should have been 1.5. It's not enough of a change. Whatever.
Well,
say what you're going to say. Everything else is getting changed in the fall, so let them go to their 2.0. It's a lot of new changes, and I'm sure that Apple's going to have even better ideas in the coming years. And you know, give it 5 years, and I think Apple's going to really have figured out this whole vision environment. So we're still at early days, you know, nice to see stuff come out. Go ahead.
While you've been talking, I've been going through this MacStories review.
There it is. That's it.
They've got some excellent, like little tiny short videos. It's illustrated exactly what you were just talking about there. This is amazing. It's just like what you're saying, Jeff. It's like it's you're seeing, I think, some of the future components of how we're going to interact with not just computers, but technology in general, because, you know, even harkening back just exactly kind of what you're saying, that I'm thinking, like, just the idea that we understand about a swipe, like on a screen. It's like that was something brand new for the iPhone when that first came out, but now everybody adopted it because that has become, those are some of the gestures that we just are intuitive today with whatever device that we pick up. And I think, to your point, you know, some people will probably hear us talk about the Vision Pro and like, oh, okay, you know, that's a expensive toy I'm not going to get. But what you continue to harp on, Jeff, is so good. It's like, this is truly the future. Like, this is Apple experimenting with probably some of the gestures and some of the ways that we're going to be interacting with technology in the future. And I you know, for me, that just continues to be exciting on that. Okay, so wow, iOS 18, iPadOS 18, we could do the watchOS, the visionOS. There's even like HomePod updates. I mean, there's everything pretty much got an update. The tvOS, and you were linking to some of that as well. Okay, but that's the software side. How about, can we, I don't want to make this a 3-hour podcast, but let's go to some of the hardware real quick, right? Because today is the day, if you pre-ordered an iPhone 16, just like what you did, my friend, or if you got a chance to go to the Apple Store like we were talking about earlier, this is the day that they are coming in. So new iPhone, new Apple Watch. This was a great review, I think, that you put from The Verge, and Nilay here, obviously the gentleman that founded and runs The Verge. This was a really good in-depth review, but man, there's so many out there. Lots of YouTube video reviews from everybody. But Man, so many good things. I mean, to me, I'm calling this an eye camera. I did that the other day, but it's like apparently so many of the updates really focus around the camera, and the fact that the Photos app has been updated, like you were talking about earlier too, I think just kind of emphasizes that a little bit more.
Yeah. Before I talk about the iPhone, while you were talking, I was just looking for my latest UPS update. My status has changed. My Apple Watch has gone from being in the city of New Orleans as of 4:30 this morning to, as of 8 minutes ago, it was loaded on delivery vehicle. So it's coming.
Okay.
We shall see. But anyway, I'm just going to laugh at that. Okay.
Great.
But let's talk about the phone. On the phone. So the big thing on the phone is that, I'm holding up my iPhone 15 right here and I'm touching it and nothing's happening. But very soon I'm going to have, in fact, almost the exact same spot where I'm just looking down. There's this thing. It used to be the SIM card.
That's right.
Thing,
The slot. Yeah.
So right around there, I'm going to have a button later on today. And so what I was curious about is Apple gave, as they do every year, they gave pre-release versions of the new iPhones and the new Apple Watch and everything else to select members of the press. And so we got a chance to see the reviews. And it's been sort of fun this week because like Monday, the new operating systems come out. And then Tuesday, I think we saw the watch reviews. And then Wednesday, so like every day we've got another thing of excitement. And so, but one of the things that came out, of course, this week were the iPhone reviews. And the big thing that in fact, it was what I picked at the end of last week's episode of what I was most excited about was the camera button because it's such a major change. And I was thrilled to see that the early reviews were very, very positive. Perhaps the only thing that was negative on it is I heard some people say that for the purposes of taking pictures, if you're holding your phone in landscape version, which is what I usually use, they said they wish the button was a little closer to the bottom. And I think the reason Apple did not do that is because although many of us think it is sacrilegious to use anything but landscape mode, so many of the younger folks hold their phone in portrait mode to take all their, selfie YouTube, TikToky videos. And for them, if you would put it all the way at the bottom, it would be too far down. And so it makes, I think that they position the button in a way that would make sense for both horizontal and vertical. But regardless of where the button is, it looks like it's really cool. I mean, if you pull out your iPhone to take a picture, you press the button and it gets you directly into the camera app. And then once you're there, you can very quickly press again to take a picture, or you can sort of touch without pushing down the button to get all these different features. You can change, the zoom. You can double light tap it to bring up menus and stuff. I mean, I'm going to have to try this out to see what I think about it.
Yes,
but all of the reviews say that this is really a nice change. So, I love it. My iPhone has been so fantastic for pictures over the years, and it gets better every single year in terms of the quality pictures. The same is true this year too. In fact, for example, both the 16 and the 16 Pro lines now use a 48 megapixel for the ultra wide, which means that if you want to have those wide shots, your quality is going to be good, just like it was on a regular shot. Plus, that ultra wide camera is what you use for macro shots. So if you want to get really, really close to get a picture of a leaf or a flower or a bug or something like that, those pictures will be much better quality now than they were before. Cool. And so that's going to be cool as well. So, I love everything about photography on the iPhone. I love, as again, we were just talking about the Photos app. And so I'm really looking forward to this camera button. I was excited to see that the early reviews were positive. It's clear, though, it is absolutely clear from the reviews that you need time to get used to it. I mean, even within the reviews, I heard people I think even Nilay Patel was talking about this, that like at first it's like, I don't know about this, but then after you try it for a day or two and you're like, okay, now, and again, this is how it's going to be with anything else, right? There's going to be that transition period, but my hope is that after a few weeks and certainly after months, it's just going to become secondhand nature. Anyone that has these new iPhones, of course, they're going to use that camera button, and it's going to make it much easier and much faster to take really great pictures. So super, super excited about that.
And again, we talked about this last week as well. Is there anything else other than better camera, a little bit faster, and that new camera button, if that really excites you? What else is there really that would encourage folks to actually upgrade, Jeff? I mean, I'm not trying to be negative here. I'm just saying, like we talked about this last. I mean, the premier aspect of the iPhone 16 is not here yet, right? It's the Apple Intelligence aspect, which we may be getting some of that in 18.1. Like we didn't really talk about that with iOS 18 because there's so much else to talk about. I mean, it's amazing to me that they have that much updates in iOS 18, but we don't even have Apple Intelligence yet. That hopefully is coming, at least some parts of it, even next month in October, they're talking about with 18.1 getting released. But Anything else on the hardware side, though? I think that's really about it. It's not much of a change in like the shape, and other than it's a little bit bigger screen. We talked about that. I realize that, which I'm going to be interested to hear from you next week. If that point 0.1 inch or so larger screen, if it makes a difference. I think that it probably is going to make a little bit of difference. You might notice it for a day or so, and then you'll just get used to it until you go back to if you see an older phone or something like that. But anything else in the iPhone hardware that you think is where, I mean, obviously it's bigger, faster, better cameras, etc., just like every year. But I mean, I'm struggling with this. I don't know if I should even upgrade, Jeff, and I'm selfishly asking the question here. Is there anything else that would push people?
First of all, no question that camera-related functions are the big changes, whether it's the photos button, the camera capture, the camera control itself, or whether it is the other things with the newer processors that allow it to do more sophisticated things, the 48 megapixel, but everything in that photography realm, I do think that's the number one reason to upgrade. The number two reason to upgrade, I know that you're referring to the AI stuff as just a software change, and you're right, but just remember that the reason that all of the new iPhones can do the upcoming AI stuff is that they all have 8 gigabytes of RAM, which only of last year's phones, only the Pro models had that. And so that's really, if you have less than that, I mean, Apple doesn't really advertise how much RAM is on the phone, but we all know that's truly what it is. They need that much RAM to do the Apple Intelligence features. So you can say that's a software feature, and it is, but it's a software feature you could not do without the hardware. So that's another hardware change. I will admit, Brett, that once you move beyond those two, everything else just gets into the, not really reasons to upgrade. I mean, we've talked, for example, that you can now charge these newest iPhones faster than before. You can charge them faster on cord than before. You can charge them faster on MagSafe. You have to have the right MagSafe puck to do it, but which Apple's happy to sell you. But that's something too. The bigger screen is going to be noticeable, and my hope is that it's going to be noticeable without being obnoxious. And I say that as somebody that got the Max one. The Max screen is bigger than ever before. So when I'm looking at the screen, that sounds really cool. My hope is that because of the reduced bezel size, it doesn't make the overall phone size so big that I'm like, this is obnoxious. I got to return it. Just get the regular 16, get the regular Pro.
Okay.
So we shall see. And I'll have more to say on that starting today when I have it in my hands. So that is going to be another physical change. But you're right. Those are the changes. So it's on the one hand, it's huge because Apple Intelligence has the potential to be so big, and the camera button, the camera control is such a huge, I mean, adding an additional button on the side of an iPhone is not something that the company does lightly. So on the one hand, these are big deals. Yeah. On the other hand, if you're trying to decide to upgrade, especially for someone like you, Brett, that's got last year's phone, in fact, you have the Pro, right? So you don't need the Apple Intelligence. You've already got the extra RAM for the Apple Intelligence and you probably don't, I mean, not that you wouldn't appreciate the faster charging and the bigger battery and stuff like that, but you probably don't need it. It'd be more of like a nice to have than a need to have.
That's fair.
So for you and for other people in your boat, Brett, it's really just going to be the question of the photography stuff. And, that photography stuff, it's going to be there the next year too. So this could be one that you decide, I'm going to enjoy the fact that the 15 can do all the AI stuff and play with that for the next year. And then maybe wait a second year to upgrade. That's your decision. Or, if you're like me, for me, it's because of the money that I can usually get for the trade and everything else. It's just, it's not that it doesn't cost nothing. I do spend real money every year on getting a new iPhone, but I find that I love taking pictures enough that playing with all the new and getting better, for me, it does make a difference. And, but that's just me, and everybody's got to be different on that. So
I love this in the Nilay's review here. He's got several comparison photos. It's a picture, but then it's got a slider so that you can compare what the picture looks like. He's got here the 15 Pro Max versus the 16 Pro Max. And he admits the differences here are so subtle, but the newer phone, the 16 Pro Max, he says it boosts the shadows just a little bit. I mean, I love it when they put pictures like this because you can kind of see, almost the same picture, and then you've got sort of this comparison there. But then on that, quickly, I just wanted you link to another story where somebody who was the Austin Mann? Austin Mann. He has done several. I mean, anytime there's a new phone, and he's a professional photographer, he went to Kenya. Apparently, this is the iPhone 16 Pro camera, not the Max, but it looks like just the Pro. He's in Kenya, and some of these pictures are just breathtaking. This is just amazing what he's doing. I mean, right here, looking at these pictures, it's like, I need to upgrade. just for the very fact of what he's got here. I mean, this is just really great, spectacular. I'll make sure we link to it in the show notes.
They're fantastic. Now, to be fair, you could probably give Austin Mann a Fisher Price camera, and he would come back with pictures that are better than you've ever taken in your entire life because he's a professional photographer.
Right.
But nevertheless, if you also give him the latest and greatest camera, he will come up with some stunning pictures. And so for many, many years now, Apple has been smart enough to give Austin Mann pictures and let him go wild with it. And every year he comes back with pictures like this that are just jaw-dropping. They're like, wow, the thing that's in my pocket can take a picture like that. My goodness.
Okay, that's the iPhone, but there's a new watch as well, and you're going to get a new Apple Watch 10 as well. Okay, so we don't have 3 more hours to talk about this, but what are the things that you are excited about on the Apple Watch 10?
I'm excited about the bigger display, which is something that I enjoy using on the Ultra. I'm currently using an Ultra 2 right now. I like that big display. I like seeing a little bit more on it, and I'm looking forward to that in a regular size watch. But what I'm very much looking for is something that, even the Apple Watch 9 versus the Ultra, for me, and I know that you feel differently, but for me was worth it just to be thinner. And so to have something that is literally the thinnest Apple Watch ever. I mean, they've been making Apple Watches for almost 10 years now, and this is going to be the thinnest Apple Watch ever. I think that that's going to be really pleasant for something that you're wearing 24/7 or just about 24/7 every day of your life, because most of us, my iPhone is usually with me, my iPad's often with me, but my Apple Watch is pretty much always with me.
Always, yes.
Unless I'm in the shower and shaving. I mean, otherwise it's always there. And so for me, having something that has a big screen, but it's even thinner, it just seems more elegant. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to see what I think about titanium, because I have recently tried the Apple Watch 9 with the aluminum case. And the aluminum case, and I say this as something, I have always used a stainless steel case from day one. And so to switch from the stainless steel to the aluminum, I did notice it was a little bit lighter. And I'm like, oh, that's actually sort of nice. I mean, I'm not saying it's a major thing, but it's sort of like a little thing you notice. And so what I'm looking forward to trying with with the titanium, because I've never had a titanium watch before. I know they've made them in the past, but the reason that titanium was such a big deal when it came to the iPhone is it's super strong, but it's light. And that was a big deal for the phone to make it lighter. And so likewise, again, I don't consider the weight of the Apple Watch as big of a deal, but to have something that's both bigger and thinner and lighter, you sort of feel like they're defying gravity somehow there, or defying the laws of physics somehow there. Like how is this? So we'll see. Now, on the other hand, from a purely aesthetic standpoint, I have always loved the shiny stainless steel. I'll have to see what I think of the titanium. I think it's a polished titanium, so it's going to be a little shiny, but I'm just going to have to see if it's a material that I like to look at. I like the look of as much as stainless steel, but I don't have a choice this year because Apple's no longer selling a stainless steel, at least not this year. Maybe they'll come back with it later. Or maybe if the titanium is really successful, this may be the high-end version of the case that they've had for years. So again, you don't need to get that. I mean, you can still get that much cheaper, save a couple $100s, get the aluminum Apple Watch, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want something that's a little bit more high-end, and for me, I think it's worth it because Apple Watch is very functional for me, but it's also like the only real jewelry that I have except for my wedding ring. So, I want something to look that I at least appreciate being nice. Others can disagree. So those are the big features for the Apple 10, and the initial reviews this week have been positive. They've said that, it seems nice. It's definitely sleeker. But again, these are, on the one hand, they're minor changes. On the other hand, the Apple Watch doesn't change that often. And so to have both a bigger screen and the thinnest ever Apple Watch, I mean, in terms of what kinds of changes we've seen for the last decade with the Apple Watch, those are pretty big changes. So,
I like this, the review from The Verge you linked to by Victoria Song, and she calls the Apple Watch 10 a more wearable Ultra. In other words,
a great phrase.
Isn't it? I mean, I like that because you're right. I mean, I'm honestly a little tempted here because I love the Ultra, and by the way, it's been titanium, and I have always long enjoyed the fact that it's never felt heavy on my wrist. I really appreciate that because I've had heavy watches in the past, but the Ultra has always been great for me on that. But the bigger screen, like the Watch 10 is going to have just as big of a screen, maybe even a little bit bigger, right, than my Ultra, just because of the way that I would love to probably have a thinner watch, just like to your point. And you've had the Ultra now, so you know that there's going to be a difference. I would love that to be just a little bit thinner, and I'm a little tempted with the Apple Watch 10. I feel like it would be a downgrade. So that's tripping me up, because I'm like, I'm going to go from an Ultra to a regular Apple Watch, and I think I'm just tripping myself up on that, because it seems like this could probably pack as good of a punch as what I have in my Ultra, other than the fact it may not be quite as robust. But I'm not like mountain climbing all the time, so I don't know. I've been very tempted on this. I think Apple has really done a very good job on some of this aspect, and just even some of the components on here, like the speaker. Like, you can play music on here now. Am I going to be able to do that on my old Ultra? I don't think so, because they have new speakers, right?
Yes, but if you have an Ultra 2, if you have the Ultra 2 that came out last
Which
year,
I don't.
you actually
Right.
you can do it. And I've
Okay,
actually tried that
okay.
because I'm wearing an Ultra 2 right now. And earlier
Yeah.
this week, I was just in the kitchen and I left my AirPods upstairs. Then I was like, oh, I want to keep listening to that podcast. And so
Right.
I just did it. I just hit play, and I could sit there and I could listen to the podcast on my Apple Watch. And I'm like, this is pretty. And like, there was, I'm obviously not going to do it if there's people around me, because you don't want to be that guy that's obnoxious.
Sure.
But nobody else was around, and I played it. And I'm like, this is something really nice. So I'm looking forward to this.
I like that.
There's going to be some very, very interesting reviews starting soon, starting today, of Ultra 2, which is just a little bit better than the Ultra 1 that you have, versus
Right.
Apple Watch 10. Because I want to
see that.
I mean, as that phrase that you just read out, what did you say? A more wearable,
more wearable Ultra. Yeah.
It used to be clear that the Ultra was the leader of the pack, and unless it was too big for you, it was the most features. Like, it was the rugged watch, the really rugged one, but it was also the most features, the most battery life, the most everything, the biggest screen. But now Apple has made that, now that there's a fork in the road, you can go the Ultra route, but you could instead go the Watch 10 route. And there's going to be some advantages that the Watch 10 has, the Series 10 that the Ultra doesn't have. And of course, there's some advantages that the Ultra has, like the super, super long battery life that the Watch 10, the Series 10 doesn't have. So, there's a true decision this year, and there really is no right answer. It just depends upon what you want. And so I see why you say to go from the Ultra to the Apple Watch Series 10. It's more of it's not, I suspect the conclusion is going to be, it's more of a side change than going up or going down. It's like you're giving up some features, but you're adding some features. So it's going to be an interest. And again, for people that are just that if you have like an Apple Watch 6 or a 7, that you're really ready for an upgrade.
Oh, no question, right?
It's you need to take some time to think about it. And I look forward to writing my review and offering my thoughts after I've used it for a while of what I think about the direction. I mean, obviously, I made the choice to go Series 10 instead of Ultra 2, but we'll see. I'm excited
to hear. Yeah. Even Victoria here, she said she picked the Ultra over the Series 9 because she liked the bigger display, made reading text and notifications easier. And she says, I was apprehensive about making the switch to the 42 millimeter Series 10, but she's like, turns out I was worried for nothing. Like, she apparently did that downgrade. I hate to use that. It's not even a downgrade. Like, she made that switch to the change, and she seems to be very happy with that. Anyway, okay, we'll be talking about that a little bit more, because I'm not convinced, but I'm so excited to hear from you next week on how that's going to go with the new Apple Watch 10. Let's round out quickly, because I know there's so much more we could be talking about, but just so that people know, the AirPods 4 is also available today. This is not the Pro. This is the AirPods 4 that we heard, it was a little bit of a surprise. To me, it comes with a little bit of disappointment, because I wanted an AirPods Pro update, and we didn't get that, which is okay. We got hearing aids. That's good. But if you are interested in the AirPods non-Pro, the AirPods 4 is out, and it looks like that if you get the noise canceling, this is also the confusion. There's like a regular version for $129, and if you pay $50 more, you get noise canceling in the AirPods 4. Sounds like people are saying it's good enough. It's not as good if you had the Pro, but it's good enough if you wanted to up your game for $50 extra.
Yeah. My summary, you know how Apple Intelligence can summarize things? What's one of the features it can do? It can summarize it. Like the Jeff I, not the AI, the Jeff I summary of the AirPods 4 reviews is this.
Yes.
if you're looking to buy AirPods for somebody for a gift, you're giving one to for your cousin for a bar mitzvah or something like that.
Right.
It's nice that you can get a relatively inexpensive, what is it, $129 AirPods 4.
Yes.
They're nice.
Right.
It's got a small case. They do the jobs that AirPods have always done. They're better than before because the shape has actually improved, that it's going to work for more ears than ever before. It's a great thing, period. If you're getting them for yourself and you want to splurge a tiny bit, you can spend the extra $50, which I think it is, and you can get the high-end version of the AirPods 4 with the noise cancellation. And the reviews that I've read have unanimously said, my goodness, it's amazing it works this well, but it's still not as good as the AirPods Pro, which is what I'm using right now, nor could it be, because the AirPods Pro completely fill your ear canal, so that there's going to be that almost of a hardware keeping out the noise, in addition to the software
like a seal. With
the seal. So you don't have a seal with traditional AirPods, but even without the seal, people have said, gosh, this noise reduction, it's better than I would have expected. It's really nice.
Right.
So if you're getting them for yourself and you want to splurge a little bit, but not quite enough to get the pros, then get the extra money in the AirPods 4. But it's nice to have it's nice to have these two options. I still think the name's a little confusing. I think it would have made more sense if they called it the AirPods 4 and the 4 Plus or something like that. Because otherwise you can tell by looking at them, because the case is a little bit bigger. But I mean, just from the name alone, it's a little confusing. Did I get the ones with the active noise cancellation, or did I not get the ones with the active noise cancellation? But that's just sort of a marketing thing on the name is. Otherwise, I mean, it's a solid upgrade. Apple, over the years, they're going to come out with better AirPods over time. This is the latest generation of the nice AirPods. So
if you're splurging, like what you were saying there, Jeff, and you're at $179, why not spend then at that point, go up a little bit more, right? Because the AirPods Pro 2 go on sale regularly for just right under $200. And I feel like if you're going to do that splurge side, I'm like, why have that difference? I don't know. I'm just a little confused at the way they did. And you're right. Like, why would they confuse people so much? Like this picture right here, like you said, you could tell the case is a little bit different. But if you don't have the other case to compare it to, then there's no way that you know which kind of AirPods. And I guess maybe that's personal for people when they get it. But if you are interested, I like the Jeff Jeff AI summary. That's really good. I think that's a good way to put it on there. Okay, we got to wrap it up, and I feel like maybe we'll include something special announcement a little bit later if you get a delivery. Where's it? It's not at the office yet, is it?
No, it's still on its way. So if we hang up and it shows up here in a minute or two, I'll get you back.
We're going to jump on. Yeah.
Don't have it as of yet. So.
Okay, so here's like non-iOS 18, non-iPhone 16 news, but this is good because I'm a big fan of this. Apple is also introducing additional state driver's license that'll be in the Apple Wallet, which I've been talking about this for a little bit. Ohio just came on board maybe a month or so ago, and I have just really appreciated and liked having that in. Now, in addition to the other, I think, so Ohio made it 6 states, I think, or maybe just 5. But now we're getting California, which is a huge deal. I think somebody was teasing about this before, like we knew this was coming on board. But I love these like very silent things, these updates on here. And I mean, to me, it's just inevitable. We're going to have all the states unless somebody's a holdout of some kind. But it's just so great to be able to have this access and have it within the Apple Wallet. I continue to just enjoy the Apple Wallet so much, and I'm glad that this is coming on board too.
Yeah, very convenient. So as of this week, you can use your driver's license in California. And in this press release, Apple also teased, and I don't think this had been announced before this week, that the next states are going to be Montana, New Mexico, and West Virginia. So if you live in West Virginia, New Mexico, or Montana, sometime soon, you'll be able to join the party as well. You did this for the state of Ohio, right, Brett?
I did, yes.
Can I ask a question? I saw Apple has a little video in their press release that explains how you do it. And they say that you take your iPhone and you take a picture of the front of your driver's license and the back of your driver's license. And then for security purposes, they said in this little video that you do this thing where you take a picture of your face and the side of your face, and then you submit that to the state, and someone looks at it and says thumbs up. Is that how it worked at Ohio too?
That's exactly how it worked. So whoever the governing body, the DMV or whatever, for the motor vehicles, it's like you have to confirm that this is your driver's license, and somehow they've got this automated to where, yes, I had to take pictures of my face, and I had to say, this is me. So you're literally connecting with whatever the Bureau of Motor Vehicles or whatever for your particular state. For me, it was pretty quick. I think it came back within a couple of hours or so. that they just had somebody had to click confirm, like, yes, this is the same guy from the driver's license, and that took the picture. So I don't know. I'm sure there's a way that people are trying to scam through this or so, but for me, it seemed like it was very secure. I didn't have any concerns or worry about it, and it showed me that I actually submitted it to the DMV in Ohio, and it even told me it was pending at the time. So you can go back into the app, and it'll tell you that it's pending, and then finally, you'll get the approval, and it just comes up as like a notification, like anything else from the Apple Wallet. And like I said, it was really easy, and so somebody just clicked confirm. Yeah, this is the right guy, and then it was in and available. Really cool stuff. Okay, I think that's it for now. We usually do it in the know, but I'm going to reserve some time, Jeff. So in case you get special deliveries today, we'll jump back on and talk a little bit more today. But thanks, everybody, for listening, and hopefully we'll have a little addition, so stay tuned. Well, welcome back through the magic of modern audio technology. We have been gone for a little bit, but we are back because, Jeff, you have something that is shiny and new in your hand. What have you done now?
So I still don't have my Apple Watch 10. It probably won't be delivered for the end of the day. But what I do have is
right. It was on its way. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
and,
good.
And can you
good.
tell which one is the iPhone? It's tough. It's very tough.
No.
So
no,
what I have in my hand
cannot.
right now is the 16 Pro Max. And in my other hand, I have my 15 Pro Max.
Okay.
So I just picked it up, and I've literally just started. I mean, I unboxed it minutes ago, and I'm just starting to take a look at it. And lots of thoughts.
This is so exciting. Okay.
Let me say this first, Brett. My concern that I voiced to you, maybe today, but certainly last week, was that since the last year Pro Max model was so big, and it's the first time I'd ever gotten a big phone before.
Right.
I was a little concerned since this one's even bigger, and I forget how much more it is. Is it 0.2 or something like that? I'm like,
something,
I don't
minor.
know. But I will tell you, it's fine. Let me just jump to the end. It's fine. And the reason I say it's fine is because although the screen is noticeably better, which I'll get to in a second, the actual case, like, it's hard for me to hold them up close to each other. They're basically, I mean, I guess there's a microscopic difference in size, but there's without holding them right up next to each other, there's no way from the outer case that you can tell that the brand new one is any bigger than the old one. I mean, it is bigger, but it's just such a minor, it's just big enough that I don't think some cases are going to fit. Although ironically, I did see somebody when I got my phone who was using his 15 Pro Max case for his 16 Pro Max. You're not really supposed to do that, but they're so close that you could almost get away with it. Again, you don't want to do that because it's going to cover up the buttons, but that just gives you a sense of how close they are. On the other hand, when you're not just holding them side by side, if I'm actually looking at a picture on both screens at once, you can definitely tell that there's more space. You can definitely tell side by side that there's that you can see the smaller bezel. You can see, like, if I'm looking at the same photograph on the two next to each other. Now again, you're not often going to have the two iPhones next to each other, but the point is just like, is there enough screen space? Is there enough additional screen space to notice it? Yeah, there is. And again, it's not going to be the end of the world. I mean, maybe it's an extra line on emails or something like that. I mean, it's not going to be the be all end all, especially for something as big as a big phone. But, if Apple can make the usable screen bigger by reducing the bezels, I'm all for it. And even if they have to increase the overall size just a little bit, just a tiny bit that you don't really notice it, totally fine. So that my big concern of whether I'm going to have to return this thing because it's too darn big. I mean, I can already tell you in the first 5 minutes, no, this is going to be fine.
So most importantly, really it passes your shirt pocket test.
It does pass the shirt pocket test. Exactly enough.
Good.
I can put it in the shirt pocket and it is totally fine.
And you're fine. Okay, good. Yes. I know that was, that's important.
Indeed. So I guess the second big thing, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, like, I can't get over, you just said you saw somebody using their 15 case on the 16 because it's just so you said it covers up the new camera button. The 15 case would anyway, whoever that is, I hope you get a new case soon. Okay, but go ahead, Jeff.
He was just in the store and I could tell that he had it and it was just something he had and he was just trying to figure out what to use.
Right.
The other thing is, the big change is this camera control. And this is really interesting. So if you have your current iPhone and you just feel what any of the buttons, whether it's the volume button or anything else, the power button, if you just press that in, you know how that feels, that clicky feel. Imagine that exact same feel with one big difference. The difference is that the button itself is flush. So if I run my finger across the top of the iPhone, I can just barely tell where it is. But once I'm on the button and I press it, It feels very similar, because
Okay.
it's like a half height or something like that.
Right.
It's not exactly the same, but it does have the satisfying feel of clicking a button.
Okay.
The difference,
Okay.
of course, is that when you click it, it opens up very quickly the camera app. So right now I'm taking a picture of you, and then when I press it again,
Uh-oh.
I've literally just taken your picture. I'm glad you were
Jeez.
smiling, and that's it. So that part is really cool, and I can totally see getting used to this. The other thing that's interesting is, when I'm holding the picture, I can see
Uh-huh.
right underneath my finger this little strip that sort of
The little
shows that
slider. Yeah.
the
Here,
slider,
I'll go.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can see that I can go to 2x, I can go to 5x. So now you're really zoomed in, Brett. Wow, look how nice you look. You might want to you might have something next to your mouth there or something like that. But so that is really nice. And the idea that you can do it all right there with your finger and then press the button to take the picture without having to like take the phone away from your face,
Right.
go
Right.
from the 2x to the 1x to the 5x, whatever.
Huh.
That's actually pretty cool. I like the idea that you can do that in
Interesting.
your hand. And then the really pro feature is that if you with a pretty good tap, just don't push in, but with a good tap,
Mm-hmm.
bang bang. If you bang bang on it, then it gets into a mode where you can switch between, the zoom mode, the camera mode, the
Yeah.
exposure mode, the different things that you're all used to playing around with, the f-stop, the depth, the exposure. And so it's nice that I can actually change one of those and then swipe back and forth and make adjustments all again while
Wow.
I'm still looking at everything in the
Yeah.
viewfinder
Like the
without having to
viewfinder.
take it
Right.
away.
Right.
So it's sort of like,
Huh.
for example, changing exposure. It's a really nice thing that I'm just sliding back and forth, and I can instantly see the effect of changing the exposure on what the picture is going to be. Of course, you can change exposure afterwards too, but that's an interesting
Right.
thing. And
Right.
and same thing for zoom. So I like that. And in
That's
fact,
cool.
there's actually two zoom features, which I don't think I realized. One of them is just sort of a regular zoom feature that it says for this camera 1x, 2x, 5x, but I could zoom as much
Mm-hmm.
as I want. If I wanted to zoom to 2.5 or 3.4, I could
Right.
totally do
It's
that.
yeah.
So that's the one zoom function. But the other zoom function, it's right next to it. It looks like a circle with little, you're showing it on your
I
screen
see
right
that.
now.
Yeah.
It's called
Yeah.
the camera, I think. And that one's a little different because it locks into, it's called cameras. And so it locks into 1x, 2x, or on the
Oh.
on the max, on the big one, the 5x. And what I like about that is, to tell you the truth, don't want to take a picture in 4.4 because I know that if I'm taking a picture at 4.4, what
Right.
I'm really doing is using the 5x lens and just cropping in. If I'm going to crop
Uh-huh.
the picture, I'll probably do that afterwards,
Sure.
but what I
Right.
do want to do is I want to know, am I using the regular 1x lens? Am I in the 0.5 mode? Am I in the 5x mode? Those are literally different cameras.
Oh.
And so
Okay.
I like the
Okay.
idea that they give you a choice. Do you want to slide in and out continuously? Or do you want your finger to switch between the different lenses? And I think that many times I'm going to want to actually switch between lenses. And then after I
Okay.
take the picture, I can crop it appropriately and stuff like that. So that's an interesting thing that it didn't even occur to me that there are two different functions.
So just quickly on the other iPhones, the my 15 Pro,
Hmm.
I do when I open the camera, I've got a 0.5, 1x, 2, and 3. So in other
Hmm.
words, I could just tap on one of those to go into
Right.
that zoom
Hmm.
mode. But then also if I tap and hold on there, I
Hmm.
can't. There's a little wheel that comes up and I can go back and forth. So
Exactly.
you're saying
So
those are the similar things that you're talking about there.
similar
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
So the wheel, or on your old
Interesting.
iPhone, if you just pinch with, you can pinch in with your hands,
Sure. Yeah. That's right.
using the
That's right.
wheel or pinching your fingers, that is like this zoom feature on the camera control. And the
Okay.
tapping
Okay.
on the 0.5, tapping
Right.
on the number 1, tapping on the number 2,
Right.
tapping on the number 5,
Right.
that is akin to the
The
camera's
little cams.
function
Okay. Okay.
of the camera
Good.
control.
That
So
helps
again, it's something
tremendously.
that
Yeah.
you've always had the option. It's just now you have
Right.
that option right underneath your finger, which is pretty cool.
Right. That's really nice.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, I can tell you're a fan of this camera control. I don't even
Oh,
want to call it a
yeah.
button. We talked about this last time. It's not a
Yeah,
button,
they're called the
right?
camera
It's almost
control.
like a trackpad.
Yeah. And I'm gonna have to play with it. Brett, it feels like it's an okay spot. I mean, I agree that maybe if it was a little closer to the bottom of the phone, that would be fine, but it's okay where it is.
But and I
Um,
have to ask. I like the fact that it's smooth and level, but then
mhm.
if is that difficult because sometimes, I mean, I guess you're going to be holding it so you can see the button. But
Yeah.
what I like about the volume button, sometimes it's in my pocket, or not that I'd be taking a picture of my pocket, but in other words, I can feel where the buttons are. And in this
Yeah.
case, you may have to look at it a little bit to know exactly what you're doing. I mean, I feel like you're going to
Almost. I
get
mean,
muscle memory to that. Yeah.
you can get muscle memory and sort of feel the edges. And the reason that you want it to be flat is when you're changing modes. I mean, technically, all you need to do is slide across the button, but the button
Uh-huh.
is only about I don't know what that is, maybe an inch long or something like that. It's not very long.
That's what it looks like,
when I'm swiping, it's actually nicer to like swipe across the entire phone.
Yeah,
Even though the reality is, I know that it's only while I'm on top of the camera control that it's even, but so you would not want to have a bump on your finger every time you slide back and forth.
Sure. Yeah,
so
yeah.
there's
I
a good reason
You're
to
right.
have
You're
it
right.
flush
Okay.
with the side of the phone. Yeah. That Apple, they did it for a reason. So
now, so that's tap, there's tap tap, and then there's tap and hold, right? The tap and hold goes into the video. Is that right? Have you had a chance to
haven't even tried that yet.
Take some videos? Hello.
Yeah, so I'm doing that right now. I tapped and held, and I'm now videoing you, video me.
Are you do you have to hold the do you have to continue to hold the button down, or can you release it and it okay.
I released it and it stopped
okay.
And then if I start pressing it again, it picks right on back up again. Although I guess this is probably a separate video. So this is a new video that it started counting from 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So yeah.
Interesting.
So it's nice to be able to jump into video real fast if you need to do that.
Although did I read just somewhere, maybe we talked about it this morning, like I guess maybe in the new camera or with iOS 18, there should be a pause function on. Yeah, okay, you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
which
and
I just think that would be cool. Okay.
If I literally go into the video mode and I start recording, so now I've pressed it down and I'm recording you. 1, 2, it's counting up. So if I pause recording at 3 seconds and then I start recording again. No, it looks like it's starting all over again. I'll have to read into.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a way.
I read the same thing as you, that there is a way to pause and continue.
Okay.
I haven't researched how to do that yet. So.
Okay, so in that slide, so again, on the camera control, in the slider, because, when I open my camera, I always have to glance down to the bottom to see, am I taking a photo, a video, a portrait, a pano, all those options. Like, so instead of me having to swipe back and forth at the bottom of my camera now, is the camera control button there? It allows you to select which mode at some point. I bet there's got to be a way to do.
I'm not sure about that. I understand what you're asking, but I think by default it's in photo. And if I hold down, it's taking a video. And then if I let go, it's no longer taking a video. And now I can click to take photos. So I guess it stays in photo mode, except for if you hold down, it's in video mode, which is actually sort of nice. I can hold down for video. And then if I want to stop taking a video and then immediately take a photo right after that, I can do that all on my hand.
Yeah.
So
I'm just thinking, like, sometimes I like to take a picture, but then, I might want to try a portrait at the same time. Like with the kids, I might take a general picture, right? And then I want to try a portrait or something like that. And I have to like stop it. I have to like tap the actual mode. And I'm just wondering if you have the ability. I mean, I know you just have had it for a little while there, but these are things I would like for you to report back by next week.
Yeah. Keep in mind why they're, Brett.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, on portrait mode, the old days used to be that you had to decide beforehand if you're taking a regular picture or a portrait.
That's right.
But nowadays, even if you take a regular picture, the camera records all the depth information. So you could change it into a portrait picture afterwards. So
Right. Yeah. Okay. Good idea on that. Good. Anything else? First impressions? I mean, we got this. I wanted to know about the screen, and I'm a little nicely surprised that you can tell that there is a little bit, even with the bezels. I mean, again, you're going to recognize that if you pick up a different phone, like you said, you're comparing it to your 15 Max right now, and you can just see that. But I like that. Even 0.2 is enough to know there is a difference.
When you see someone across a room, you're not going to be able to instantly tell if they have a 16 Pro Max or a 15 Pro Max, because the camera control is so hard to really see unless you're pretty close. And likewise, the size difference is so similar. So it's not like you'll notice it, from across the room. But when you're using it yourself, it's a nice little improvement.
You need a sticker, like an I voted sticker. Like, no, I have, this is a 16, by the way. So everybody, now you know.
Well, look, that was a quick little update. I mean, I'm going to be using it for next week. I'll have a lot more to say about it next weekend when we record, but fun to be able to talk about it. So now I just can't wait for the new.
You've got your work cut out.
Watch. I know,
and hopefully a review. You'll be doing a review, I'm guessing, by next week, or at least by the podcast time. We'll have some additional stuff to talk about. Thanks, Jeff, for jumping back on and recording. Sort of, I wanted to say it's an unboxing, but it's really just a revealing of the brand new. There. There's the box. Okay, good. So we do have the box. All right. Thanks for joining us again, everybody. We appreciate it. And Jeff, I'm very excited that we'll be talking with you next week.
Thanks, Brett. Bye-bye, everybody.